everyone, how you going? Have you had a fantastic day? Okay, let's have a look at this one. 29th of July 21. I found a below article saved up. Nothing came out of it back then. The piece talking about some ancient tunnel that was allegedly cleared shortly prior to 1845. Here is my take on the below article. 1. There are rumours about existence of the tunnel. They kind of knew that it existed, but it was written like they didn't know where it was. 2. They didn't really know who built it, but assumed that its ancient Romans did. 3. The tunnel was in nearly perfect preservation. 4. It was a 60-foot wide single arch tunnel. 5. It was 25% longer than the Thames Tunnel, allegedly built by Brunel in 1825 and 1843. 1,300 feet or 396 meters plus 25% equals 1,625 feet or 495 meters, half a kilometer. The tunnel was between one of the towers of Fort St. Nicholas, a star fort, and the parish of St. Victor. The tunnel was built at the mouth of the port and went under deep sea. Fort St. Nicholas is a fort overlooking the old port of Marseille. It was built between 1660 and 1664 by Chevalier de Chelles on the orders of Louis in order to quell the spirit of independence in the city of Marseille. Fort St. Nicholas has been classified a historic monument. From the Middle Ages, there was a small chapel founded between 1150 and 1218, placed under the patronage of St. Nicholas and dependent on the St. Victor Abbey on this site. At the foot of this chapel, the level of the narrowest opening between St. Jean and St. Nicholas forts, the Chantal Providence ordered in 1332 the construction of a wooden pass slide at the end, which was fixed change blocking the harbour pass. The pass slide is gradually reinforced to form, in 1381, two real piles of bridge. On this date, St. Nicholas Chapel underwent major work with construction of a walkway and a wall going as far as the port chain. The defence system proved inefficient during the attack of King Alfonso V of Aragon on November 20th, 1423. Landing at a neighbouring cove, the Aragonese took the chapel from behind the Catlin galleries and were able to enter the port. The city was pillaged for 3 days, and the Aragonese took the trophy, the chain of the port, which is still on display at the Cathedral of Valencia in Spain. In 1591, 4 private individuals, Louis Nourrit, Gabriel de Luz, Jean Ballon, and Antoine Mascon, had the chapel of St. Nicholas rebuilt. Antoine Mascon was a friend of Charles de Cossack, sorry for saying the names wrong, was the director of the mint in 1593. His son, Pierre Mascon, was the first printer in Marseille in 1596 by publishing a book. So I've shared a few links on interesting books through Google Documents, and you should check them out into my community tabs. So it goes on about in order to gain control, decision to build a citadel. Duke laid the first stone on the 11th of February 1660, which is engraved for fear that the faithful in Marseille too often prey to criminal agitations. Few seditious people would finally lose the city and the kingdom either by ardor or boldness or by excessive passion for freedom. And the King of French wanted to provide them through the citadel for the safety of the great and people. And in the Mine Unveiled video with the star forts are on the ley lines. So what if all these star forts were actually used as cloning factories? 1823, 569 prisoners, including soldier Vados, had been one of the organization's guerrilla warfare with Napoleon troops after 1808. Also served as a place of detention for sailors of the boat that landed April 28, 1832. It was also used as a prison. A lot of these star forts were used as a prison. I don't think they're just, for defense. There's more to it. They're on the ley lines. Yeah. I don't know if many know, but Notre Dame is also built on a star fort as well. I made a video about it some time ago, talking about how they had to put a vernacular um, thing up. So they're just forts all around the whole area, and this is where the tunnel goes across here. So the tunnel was between one of the towers of Fort. Okay, so I read that. 7. The tunnel was built at the mouth of the port and went under deep sea. 1845, a newspaper article. According to the French papers, a new remarkable assertion of the powers of ancient practical science has been brought to light in the city of Marseille. To dispute the triumphs of the present, that town is, and it seems suddenly about to be endowed with a ready-made tunnel of larger dimensions and greater extent than Mr. Brunel's extraordinary performance below the Thames. There has long been known to exist a subterranean passage which tradition reported to lead from the parish of St. Vicar to issue beneath the tower in the fort of St. Nicholas passing. Therefore, at the mouth of the port, under the deep sea, where floated a line of battleships, for many years the termini may have been encumbered with rubbish, and no one had ventured to verify the tradition by attempting the perilous passageway. Thus, daring and even rash enterprise has been, however, successfully achieved by M. Joyland, engineer of roads and bridges, and Marseille architect. Repairing with some friends to the ancient abbey of St. Vicar, they penetrated by a long flight of steps to the bottom of the tunnel, and clearing a way before them, finally emerged at the port of St. Nicholas. The work, which they supposed to be Roman, is, they reported, in nearly perfect preservation. A few parts were only in what want of repairs, whose cost they estimate at no more than 16,000, 20,000 L, and proper approaches are that will be wanting. The tunnel is a single arch with the width of more than 60 feet and is 1/4 longer than that of London. I tried to find out contemporary information about the tunnel but was unable to. Chances are I used the wrong keywords. Below I have two objects connected to this 16-foot, 100-foot subterranean passage. Fort St. Nicholas and Abbey of St. Vicar. As you can see, we have approximately 950 feet from center to center. It'd be interesting to figure out where the additional 700 feet could be hiding at. So here it goes to that one, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to here and to all the other ones. Like I went to the fort in Newcastle, and the tunnels were only open for for the public for a little bit, but the bloke that maintained it, he said it went out for 15 miles in each direction, and all major government buildings, hospitals, custom houses, all that sort of stuff were had entrances, so it wouldn't surprise me. We have the following older plans for the Port of Marseille: 1575, 1663, 1696, 1702, 1840. I'm not sure if the links okay. I'm not sure if I can figure out even the direction of the tunnel. If we use the description provided in the article, there's only one direction we can have. The tunnel was built at the mouth of the port and went under the deep sea. This direction should cross the port of Marseille south to north. At the same time, we're being told that the tunnel went from Fort St. Nicholas to the parish of St. Vicar, and if the parish of St. Victor is the same as Abbey of St. Vicar, I'm not sure it makes sense. So clearly is no deep sea there. The distance is not adequate. Below we have a map of the port of Marseille dated 1840. I marked blue with the approximate length of our phantom 60-foot wide, 1600-foot, 25-foot long ancient tunnel going in the direction that would make sense. At the same time, when we look at the 1575 map, Fort Nicholas and the Chapel of St. Vicar are on opposite sides of the port. Mansion also has something to do with St. Vicar. I marked it just in case. It's on the opposite side. See the whole area. It's just got bastions all throughout it. The whole place here, here. It's everywhere. got the walls. Considering the above-mentioned 1845 article was produced with the St. Victor Place on the same side with Fort Nicholas, it does not make sense, but here is where it gets interesting. The St. Laurent Tunnel, or Tunnel of the Old Port of Marseille, is located downtown Marseille near the entrance of the city's former commercial port, now a marina. It connects north to south shores of the port. In fact, north and south districts of the city is in fact made up of two tunnels, east and west, with two lanes each reserved for light vehicles. The length is 600 meters or 1,968 feet. In the 90s, Marseille was already experiencing traffic endless traffic jams. The multiplicity then imagines the construction of a tunnel under the old port to relieve traffic congestion. Work began in 1964. The tunnel inaugurated 7th December 1964. So obviously they knew it was there. They had to reduce congestion, so they cleaned it out and fixed it up. That's what it is. The idea of building a tunnel connecting north and south shores of the old port appeared in the early 1960s, a period when the streets of Marseille were increasingly congested. This achievement was seen as a way to avoid going through the quays of the old port going north, and thus ensure a better connection between the sides of the city. The construction of the tunnel was spread over 35 months between 1964 and its inauguration, December 16, 1967. The work was directed by George Lacroix, Director General of the Technical Services of the city and the engineer of the bridges and roads. From the start, and the latter altered the multiplicity at the site would be a scale hitherto unknown in an urban site, as shown in the brochure of time published here. You can click the links, I'll leave the links. A very particular construction technique. The tunnel is in fact made up of two juxtaposed tubes separated by an interval at 1 meter. The best way to meet the technical constraints of the site and to interfere as little as possible with navigation of the old port during the work, George Lacroix decided to prefabricate underwater structures in the Fairing Basin. The company's facilities have been content with cramped spaces, which leads to adopting the original solution and using as work prefabrication area at the bottom of the Fairing Basin, previously dried and filled out. We can read. I don't think the Basin d'Arcadie was considered to be the old port back in the day. It does not look like deep sea. Then again, who knows? In the process of working on the article just now, I run into the following rebuttal. Now I'm twice as suspicious of the old port of Marseille's tunnel saga. 1845 Roman tunnel in Marseille. In your French number of February 8th, there was a short notice from the French papers of a very curious tunnel, supposed to be of Roman construction, which had been recently discovered under the mouth of the harbour of Marseille, connecting the two forts of St. John and St. Nicholas. I have just returned from Marseille, and while there made an inquiry for the tunnel, and was assured that they had first heard of such a structure from the Paris papers. This is not the first time either that such a report has been spread. There appears to be some tradition that such a thing does exist, but no discovery of kind has been yet made. April 14th, 1845. The above rebuttal, they are talking about a tunnel connecting Fort St. Jane and Fort St. Nicholas. To rebuild the Vieux-Port tunnel, or the ancient Romans, according to the construction of the new tunnel, I found this. This is the man who sunk the tunnel of the old port. I'm not so convinced, said Lewis. The manifest built this fort around 1550 and then demolished it because it frightened people. Now, if they were cloning people there and doing crazy science experiments, yeah, and Napoleon built a castle near it named Paris de Praro. It's weird because they totally exploit the Roman constructions in the area for tourists. So I found this really strange photo about the church. And they're a surprise. 1906 exhibition, Colonel. showing Notre Dame. See, it's built on a star fort, this Notre Dame, and they had a vernacular railway going up. It was built on the foundations of an ancient fort at the highest natural point in Marseille, 149 metres, 489 feet of limestone outcropping on the south side of the old port of Marseille, an ancient fort. And here's the funicular, 84 metres. That's, and then you got that. It's crazy. And these were sprouting up everywhere at the same time. Commissioned in 1892 and closed in 1967 and destroyed in 1974. And they'll probably use the maintenance of it as some excuse. They just ruin anything that it probably didn't need much maintenance. It's not that far from the tunnel either. The following extraordinary account set forth the later Marseilles and the debates. There has long been known and believed to exist in Marseilles a tunnel of submarine passage passing from the ancient abbey of Victor, running under the arm of the sea, which is covered with ships and coming under the tower of Fort St. Nicholas. Many projects for exploring this passage have been entertained, but hitherto no one has been found sufficiently and hold the preservance in it. M. Joyland of the Points de Chersier and M. Martyrs, an architect, have, however, not only undertaken but accomplished this task. Accompanied by some friends and a number of labourers, they went a few days ago to the abbey and descended numerous steps that led to the entrance of the passage. Here they were, on the first day, stopped by heaps of the ruins of the abbey. 2 days afterwards, however, they were able to clear their way to the other end and come out at Fort St. Nicholas after working 2 hours and 20 minutes. The structure, which is considered to be Roman, is in excellent condition. That is in order to put in a complete repair at a cost of no more than 500,000 francs will be required, but the much larger layout will be wanted to render it serviceable for modern purposes. The tunnel is deemed much finer than that of London, being formed of one single vault and 60 feet span and 1/4 longer. So even they outline a timeline and cite that they were working for 2 hours and 21 minutes. Well, I guess we're supposed to think that was all a rumor and misunderstanding. So the vernacular is really like a bunch of dirt. Let's make this easier. There's another comment about a tunnel in 1844. This is at the bottom of the 1892 funicular. The old port area is somewhat weird. The Marseille Transporter Bridge, inaugurated in 1905 and destroyed in 1944, was a crossing of the old port of Marseille, designed by engineer Ferdinand Audin. The bridge in Marseille was built in 19 months to connect the quays of the port and the quays of the River Neve. It was inaugurated 15 December 1905. In the 1930s, it served only as a decoration due to the lack of means to maintain it. On the 22nd of August 1944, the German military blew up the bridge to block the port during the liberation of Marseille, but only the north tower fell into the water. The rest collapsed on the 1st of September 1945, following the firing of 400 kilos of explosive. Interesting. That was a transporter bridge for the stuff coming into the port. I think that's what the wall was really about, was just cleaning up after it and getting rid of everything of the old world tech. And then they had the exposition fairs and said, look at this new technology, all controlled by, the Masons, the Rosicrucians, they all, the Moors, they all work together. Every country has re-edited their history. They've destroyed the old world technology. Have a read of this. Goes on about another tunnel. He was the guy that supposedly built the tunnel, went to Egypt and London and invented a lot of crazy stuff. So it's just, another piece of the puzzle. And yeah, I think these forts were some sort of place where it was on the ley lines, and humans were either cloned or something, after the devastation. It's a crazy world out there. Thanks, everyone. Hope you like that. Cheers.